So like I was saying, layer styles, you have layer styles that are designated to brightening up a layer, darkening up a layer, and then you have those crazy ones like difference, exclusion, subtract, divide. These have to do with finding the same things that are in both layers and basically overexposing them. And this is specifically for you have to get in more into layer styles to really understand the purposes of these different layer styles. But what I usually use for Sunday service, just at the moment, as I use screen. And once you put screen on, even if you're at 100%, you will still see both, because the upper layer acts as a screen for the bottom layer, so you can still see the bottom layer through the upper layer. Through the top layer, as you can see, both of these are at 100% opacity, so you shouldn't be able to see this bottom layer, but this upper layer is acting as a screen. And that's how that would work. And you have multiple layers that you can do that with. So I usually set all of these to screen. And I end up playing with that. Sometimes, as you can tell, I add too much media in there. But you can basically add as much media in there as you want. And screen will make all of these act like screens so that they all show through. You can see some more different layer styles. They're all meant for really looking through to the bottom layer. You can see how crazy difference will look if I add that. That's difference right there. Kind of looks like a negative, an exclusion. And then let's get back into, more normal. Then it's overlay. Overlay is a darkening layer style. So that'll just make everything darker. You're gonna want to stick with screen for now, because screen really doesn't change much. And you're never gonna want to have all of these layers on at the same time. The way that I usually transition between different looks and feels is I stick to one color, and in order to change to another color, I have certain layers turned off so that I can change that background. So say we are worshiping, right? Now let me add that to this layer right here. We are worshiping, and we're in red. We have this red right here. This is very distracting. This is a lot, but just for the sake of the video, this is what we have right here. And what I'll do is I'll turn these layers off, and I will add some media to them. I'll basically take them to 0 opacity and add some media to them. Say I want to change the color of the entire room to blue. Oh snap. See, that's one other thing you have to be very careful of. And I'm glad that I made this mistake just now. You have to make sure you select the layer that you want to send that certain media to. If you don't select that layer, if you don't reselect the next layer that you want to send it to, you will end up changing your background in the middle of service, and I promise you it will be very disruptive for you. This is very distracting. If you do that in the middle of service, it seems like a smooth transition, but it's not necessarily controlled. It's not necessarily what you really wanted to do. So you'll go to these other layers and say you wanted to change everything to blue. You're never going to use this bright because this is very bright blue. And you change both of these to blue. As you can see, you've already put these content into these layers, but you haven't turned the layer on. So now you can slowly start transitioning the more distracting layer out, just slowly bringing down that opacity. And now you have nothing in that layer right there. It's basically off, right? That's the more distracting layer. And you start slowly bringing in one of your other layers of blue. So now we have a blue background. We have introduced blue into the mix. You can now start adding in your third layer. Now, all of this has to do with timing. Your timing has to be perfect with the music. You're not going to want to do this at a random time in the middle of service. Of course, if you have such tendencies to do this at random times in the middle of service, we're obviously not going to put you on PvP, because you obviously have no idea what you're doing and you refuse to be taught. But You have to make sure that these transitions are seamless and not so distracting. And also have to make sure that the backgrounds that you choose are the correct backgrounds for the atmosphere inside of praise and worship. So now we can go ahead and fade this last red background out. And now we have the whole sanctuary blue. The entire screen is blue. You have that Streams of Joy cut out right there. It's still there. In order to turn this cutout off, you just simply take the background that is directly underneath the cutout and you start fading it out, because the only way that cutout is showing is by that background. So if you turn that background off, it will not show anymore. The cutout cannot show anymore. Even though the cutout is still there, it cannot show. Now, I've gone through sending content to different layers and the functions of different layers and layer styles. Some people call it blending. That's how they use it. But now to go into the different functions that each layer can perform. And so you have mute, and that's if you're going to be sending audio through that layer. We'll go into that in a little bit. You have eye, like this eye is basically for the view. So if this eye is on, you can see this layer. If this eye is off, you can't see this layer, as you can see. Turning this layer on and off. Then you have this cancel. This cancel will take any content that's in that layer out of it immediately, and it will use your transition to do so. Now, these transitions down here, you have an array of different transitions right here. And these transitions right here, we're usually going to keep it on crosshatch because that is the smoothest looking transition that we have. But you can also go in and edit these transitions, the duration, how long it takes to do so. We're going to keep this on crosshatch at the moment, but you have many different transitions down here that here at your disposal. And so if you were to turn this layer off or take any content out of this layer, once you hit this cancel button, it will use that transition to take it out. And now that layer is empty. We're going to go in and do this to all of our layers. I'm just going to turn on all of our layers for the purpose of this demonstration. You can see I'm just going to go in slowly, and the default transition will be a fade. So basically, if I click this cancel button, it's just going to fade out. I'm going to click this one is going to fade out. This is going to be a crosshatch, so it's going to crosshatch out. And that is our smoothest transition. I'm going to do that with the rest of these. Snap, I didn't do that properly. And then they will all go out. We then have layers that are set specifically for media. Any media that you have. So you're going to go into this media. You're going to go into this media folder right here, and you're going to select anything that you want to send. I'm just going to select this most recent news, and I've already designated it to this layer right here. So once I click it, it's going to go straight to that layer. You don't necessarily have to select the layer in order to send it. Now with these, with the backgrounds are the only things you're going to have to select the certain layer that you want to send it to. With other things like media, I've made sure that they go directly to media. This is zoom for the zoom screen. Whatever pastor wants the zoom screen on the screen, you can click in video input. I'll go into that in a little bit, and that'll go directly into this layer. You have lyrics, Bible, offering / benediction. All of those have been designated. They have their certain content that is designated to go to those layers. And then we have media. So all media we have is going to go straight to this layer. And I'm going to add a second media layer just in case we might need to transition from one media to another media. This is where you're going to be playing like videos like the news, videos like Pastor Jerry's messages, and that would just be a transition. Let me make that a crosshatch transition right now. Crosshatch transitions we're going to generally want to be 1 second long. So let me change that to 1 second. I can actually go in here and type that, I believe. We're going to want that to be 1 second long. And once we have that set up, any media that you send will go straight there. Now, on these media layers, you're going to want the sound. Make sure that sound is on. Make sure this eye is on. You're never going to want to turn that off. If you ever want to take any media out, you're just going to press this cancel button. With the media, cancel button is the way to go. When it comes to the backgrounds, if you want to take a background off or you want to change backgrounds, I believe I've explained this to you. Let's say we have this background on, and I have that at opacity at 100%. It's already on screen. We have this background on. Let me see. I'll use this one. We have this going on right here. If you wanted to change something, change this background, I would suggest, instead of just straight changing it like this, that's a very horrible transition. What you're going to want to do is slowly fade out of it. Fade the opacity down. Once the opacity is down, then go ahead and change that background to whatever else you might want it to be and bring that opacity back up. That is a much smoother transition.